Hey everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. What if somebody took a speaker, turned it on its side, and mounted a record player to it? Would that be a great idea or the worst idea ever? You're not going to want to miss this. All right, we got a big box. I don't know if there's retail packaging. I never know until I get in there. There shouldn't be in this case because this thing, it's never going to be on a store shelf. You know, you're always going to order it online, from what I understand. Also, don't be fooled. Definitely does not come from the U.S., at least not originally. This box does indeed come from China, as you can see here, clearly marked. If it's a little tip, a little pro tip, just between you and me, don't tell anybody else. If you want to acquire something from China, I would do it sooner than later. Obviously, the tariffs are happening. It seems like it's going to be a 30% tariff, and that should settle around 50% of that as a retail markup. We'll see. But also, I wanted you to know that once stateside surplus is depleted, then that's really when things are going to kick in. So you may be like, well, it's not that bad. The markups haven't been that bad yet. Well, that's because the warehouses here still have stuff in them. So once that stuff here in the United States is gone, then it needs to be backfilled. And that's when we're going to start feeling it. So anyway, just a little thing there. You may want to snag those imports sooner than later. I don't know anything officially, but that's seems to make sense from my perspective. All right, moment of truth. It's another box. Okay, this is the box in the box. It is somewhat of a retail box. You gotta be kidding. Okay, I thought there was another box. This is just they put these here so when you're cutting it open with a knife, it protects it. There we go. We finally found it. Buried in here. It's packed well. You can't say it's not packed well. And we got our quick start guide here. And I need to get all this out of these boxes and onto the workbench. Okay. We've got it out of the box now. Let's start here. Looks like we've got a cast aluminum platter, which is good. Always like to see that. So this is an all-in-one solution. System in a box, as I like to call it. A turnkey solution. Everything you need to play records is here. Built-in speakers, etc. So let's start with the actual platter. So yeah, die-cast aluminum, belt-driven. Belts on the sub-platter there. And then a fairly rigid platter mat. Set that aside for the time being. We've got our quick start guide, and then we've got the product sort of sandwiched in between these foam blocks. Okay, getting there, step by step. Set this aside for a moment, and yeah, so the speakers are built into the base of the device here. So One by One has done some really good stuff. They've really kind of shown up with some innovative ideas, quality products, good, what I would call quality entry-level products or even step-up products. Got a giant foam block there. Okay, so let's kind of tour the device before we put it together and, you know, see what she can do. But obviously we've got this massive plinth/cabinet. It's this gloss white. I think they call it a piano gloss white. It feels like good, dense material. I think it's a plastic. I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, we've got our speakers here. They're two-way speakers, so we've got a woofer and a tweeter times two. And the good thing is the tweeters are on the outside edge because the tweeter is what gives you the directional sound. That being said, they're still awfully close together. If the tweeters were right here, it would just be a muddled, there would be no stereo separation whatsoever. As it is, I still think it's going to be hard to differentiate stereo, but you're getting both channels represented. Okay, on the back panel here, we've got a built-in preamp, switchable, RCA outputs, which is good because you can hook it up to another system, an aux input, and there's the grounding terminal for the external preamp. Good to see it on there. It's kind of weird that it's separated from the RCAs. Look at this. We've got a pitch control. I'm so glad to see that. So that's a much easier way to adjust speed than having to do it on the bottom. And some units, as we've seen recently, don't even have an adjustment. So 12-volt power supply down there. And if I zoom out, we can look at the bottom here. It's pretty basic. There's 4 fixed rubber feet, but they feel good. They've got a good look to it. This whole thing looks, quality. It looks like it's something different and unique and quality. Look at the clip here. That's well done. That's all rugged. I like that a lot. And again, this is the Model Model 1-AD07US15. I love this because it's different. Look at this mechanism. Shock mounted. That looks really cool. The tone arm, the motor, and the mount, or the spindle, I should say, it's all mounted on this shock mount, and it's different than anything we've seen before. I like this. So far, I'm very, very intrigued. Ideally, you don't want the motor being like over in this region because you want it as far away from the cartridge as possible. That's why motors are supposed to be up here, ideally, or down here. But all-in-one units require them to be kind of up here. So it's an off-the-shelf mechanism, but that may not be bad. I don't think on this level of equipment, especially using these, we're going to have that big of an issue. And for people, the naysayers that say, record players with built-in speakers are always bad, that's definitely not true anymore. Go and look at the Stackstone unit that we reviewed. That's a fantastic one with built-in speakers. But I'm intrigued. This looks quality so far. Let's go ahead and put that platter into place, which should be pretty easy. We're just going to lower it into position, and I'm going to grab that belt, pull it around the pulley there. And these cast aluminum platters are good. They've got a good mass inertia, enough for this level of equipment. Again, this is beginner level, but doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. Let's hold off on the dust cover for the time being. I want to kind of pivot back here for a moment, and let's check out this tone arm. All right, metal tone arm, plastic head shell that is fixed, and we've got the 3600 under here. I'll show you that in a minute. But this looks like it's done well. The cartridge wires are insulated. It is slotted up here and adjustable by the looks of it. And I'm liking the hardware on this. I really am. And it's fun to see something new. A lot of people, it's the same mechanism over and over, Record-ology. Well, I can't help it. That's what people are putting out. I'm just reviewing this stuff. And even the stub back here, that's metal as well. The gimbal that's a plastic piece, I believe, at least on the top. And the main gimbal down here is a plastic cup. But it seems pretty solid. There's movement, but it's part of the suspension, the shock mounting on there. So we'll get that properly set with the counterbalance. It does run off of a wall wart. The accessories, I forgot to mention this earlier, we do get a cartridge alignment protractor, the cheap 45 adapter.
This adapter's where it all begins. Your vinyl dreams are calling out loud. Be the king, be the queen of the record crowd. Record-ology's got what you must embrace. A 45 adapter to rock the place.
And the metal adjustable tracking force, counterweight, I should say. So we'll put that on like so, and we'll set that in just a minute. Let's look at that cartridge. Okay, yeah, so we've got the 3600 on there. It's a good cartridge. I've talked about it a lot. It's omnipresent, but it is a very good cartridge, and the wires are insulated on the back, so this has some serviceability. So I'm really, really glad to see that. Back down in this region, I didn't mention it earlier, but there is a queuing lift with a neutral detemp position in the rest and a rubber-lined shelf out here. And this hardware is metal, which is really nice to see. I'm glad to see some metal construction here. We do have two knobs down here. These, again, are machined aluminum. Very nice presentation. This is the power and volume. It's got a nice textured edge there and good drag on that. This is a function switch, Bluetooth 3345 and aux in. Again, has good drag. All of that feels as it should. All right, got the dust cover on. By the way, thank you for giving me permission to say smoked instead of just tinted. This is a nice look. It's kind of a bluish. No, is it blue or gray? I think it's gray. Kind of a grayish tint to it. That looks really slick. I like that. That looks very, very, very good. So I was reading this little notice down in this sticker. Apparently it's got some auto stop capabilities, not just with the record itself, but with the unit just powering down. Like, I know that's regulatory in some areas. I'm not sure if the United States is one of those areas, but if you just walk away and the thing's powered up, it'll, shut itself off, which I think that's cool. I have no problem with that. I wanted to test the auto stop here. Some of these auto stop the second they get to the center of the record based on the geometry of the tone arm. Others, it's more of a timed thing. When there's no sound for a certain amount of time, it shuts it off. So I think this is the latter. I think this is going to wait for a period of time and then at some point shut itself off. Okay. It was a long 3 minutes, but I'm going to trust that was 3 minutes. Okay, we're going to start by listening ambiently. I want to test out these speakers, and then we'll do a direct feed sound test and listen to that built-in preamp. Also, of note, looking at the specs here, very interesting. So if you're using the phonograph mode, the audio is amplified 5 watts times 2 channels. But if you're using Bluetooth, it goes up to 18 watts by 2. That is interesting. So you only get 5 watts per channel for the phonograph, but you get 18 watts over Bluetooth. So we're going to do a Bluetooth test as well, because I'm intrigued how good these can sound and how different it is from what you get with the record player itself. All right, let's go ahead and listen ambiently to these speakers. This will be mono to you, but obviously in the room, stereo for me. So interestingly enough, I just got done doing the ambient sound test, but I was noticing some distortion. First thing I thought of was maybe remember I said the gimbal sometimes doesn't give you proper movement of the anti-skate if it's a cheaper gimbal, because it doesn't have the full fluid free range of motion. Same thing can happen with tracking force. If it, I just floated it. I did a manual set, put what I thought was 3 grams on there. Come to find out it was just over 2 grams. So there was way too light. It was tracking way too light. So I'm guessing that's why it sounded kind of distorted. So I manually applied 3 grams using my gauge to verify. But the problem was I had to screw the counterweight all the way to the front. And I just got it to like 3.2, 3.15, something like that. So this isn't calibrated quite right. And I'm afraid that a user that doesn't know any better is just going to set it like they're instructed to and then have an issue with it being too light, because tracking too light is actually a bigger problem than tracking too heavy. Anyway, I think I got it right now. Let's go ahead and give this a listen. Sounded better that time around, but I don't know if you heard it, there was still a little distortion here or there, and in spite of that I still found myself smiling because it still makes a very pleasing noise. It's very musical. There was warmth, there was a full frequency that I could hear with these speakers. They were good sounding. That being said, there was no like thumping bass, but this record isn't a thumping bass type of a record. I'm about to show you the Bluetooth just so we can hear what 18 watts sounds like compared to 5 watts coming out of these speakers. It sounded good. It's beginner level, definitely beginner level, but I'm impressed so far overall. I think this is very fun.
I don't want to hit no nerve, but I got rhythm and my rhythm deserves to shake.
Along came a semi with a high canvas covered load.
You know, it sounded good. It was, I don't know if I hadn't read it that it was 18 watts versus 5 that I would have been able to tell a difference. There wasn't like exceptional bass or anything, but it was full and it sounded like there was highs and mids and, you know, a touch of lows for a, you know, kind of a full sound for a basic casual speaker. So we've kind of tested out the built-in speakers, which I think overall are adequate for probably casual listening, ambient listening, beginner listening. But, you know, what about more critical listening? What if you want to hook it up to a bigger sound system? Remember, built-in preamp, switchable, and we can connect this thing to anything we want. So I'm going to connect it to you directly, which gives you the opportunity to hook it up to your sound system, to hook it up to your headphones, whatever the case may be, whatever you're watching this on, albeit compressed YouTube audio. But at the same time, you should get a decent idea of whether or not this is a viable standalone turntable that could be connected in a hi-fi configuration. So without further ado, put those headphones on, connect to your speakers, and here we go with a direct feed sound test.
Mind if I say you're cute?
I don't believe that we've met.
In every way you're cute.
The name I did not get.
Those big blue eyes,
But in your case,
that turned up nose,
a classic face.
that cool and carefree pose.
All right, what do you guys think? $219 on Amazon. You know, even with the direct feed, I was still hearing a little bit of harshness, little distortion artifacts here and there. But I think for the beginner, somebody just starting out, or the very, very casual listener, that this might be acceptable. I think the design from a visual standpoint is really cool. I like it. It's different. It's unique. Where it's not just the same thing rehashed over and over again. So the concept is good. Obviously, this is targeted at, you know, a beginner. And the reason why I say that is when you see funky design elements and things, typically that's in lights and things. That's to hook the beginner. You know, somebody that's like, hey, this is cool. That would look good in my house. I've got that black and white aesthetic. By the way, it's available black on black as well if you'd rather. But in terms of performance, it's got a good capability set, aux in, Bluetooth, the built-in two-way speakers. What else am I forgetting? The line output, the built-in preamp, etc. I would if I was going to be using this thing personally, I would go with an external preamp that might be a little bit higher end. I think that the weakness that we hear in terms of the sound fidelity just not being a 10 out of 10, it's more of a 6.8 to 7 out of 10. Or if you're doing letter grades, a C, C minus, is probably due to a preamp, probably an internal preamp that's not the best it could be. So pair it with an external preamp and you should be fine. $219 though, I think for what this is, everything out of the box, fits in a small space, is built with quality elements. There's metal. I don't feel like they're cheaping out on anything that's obvious here, except for maybe that built-in preamp. But for the target audience, I think it might do the trick. As always, I want to hear what you have to say. Let me know in the comments down below. All right, my friends, thank you so much for watching. That's going to do it for today. I hope you found this entertaining and interesting. Like I said in the video, this may fit the bill for some people, so I'll go ahead and put a link in the description down below. But mostly I just want to hear what you have to say. I wanted to also invite you to join our membership program. You saw that slide at the beginning of the video. Your name could be on there as well. Only $1 a month, plus early access to some videos, exclusive content, and a host of many benefits, not the least of which is knowing that you're supporting this channel. And your support means everything. But just watching these videos is support. And for that, we thank you so very, very much. Also, don't forget, we have merch. We have custom 45 adapters, but we don't have anything if we don't have you. So thank you again for being there. We got a lot of cool stuff coming your way that you're not going to want to miss. But that's going to do it for today. So happy record hunting, and we'll see you next time.